So we're going to start creating our first tour, and the first thing that we need to set up is the tripod. So set it up nice and level to a height of about 5 foot chest height, and you will always need to centralize the tripod so that when the camera is mounted on it, it can see all of the exit points from the room, because those are going to be navigation points that you're going to need to mark in the tour so that people can move around. Having set the tripod up, I need to attach the camera. This is the little Madventure camera, and that just screws on the top. Now there's something here that you'll notice about the tripod that's a little bit non-standard, and that's that it doesn't have a normal tripod shoe. I've taken the shoe off and I've just put a little adapter on the top there. So the camera, as you can see, has got two 180-degree lenses, which means that it will take a photograph of a full 360 degrees around it, but also in that dimension as well. So it's a bit like taking a photograph of the inside of a football. So if you take the shoe off a tripod, then it can't appear in the photo. So these little adapters work absolutely perfectly. It doesn't really matter too much which way the camera is pointing, unlike a normal camera, because it's obviously going to take the full 360 degrees. The next thing that you need to do is to turn the camera on. Press the little button at the top, and then turn the Wi-Fi on. And you will hear the little peep and the little flashing light showing that the camera is both on and that the Wi-Fi is now being generated. And this is really important, the camera is generating its own Wi-Fi signal, and what we need to do is connect to that with your phone. So then on your phone you want to connect to the camera. You'll see there that on my phone it's already done that, but of all of the available Wi-Fis, you want to select the one, and when the camera arrives it will tell you the name of the Wi-Fi and the password that you need to connect to it. So now what we want to do is to open the immoviewer app and tell it that we're going to create a new tour, and we're in a very nice property today called the Malt House. And we'll tell it that we're using the Madventure camera and that it's an indoor photo. We're then going to select the room. So we're in the kitchen, which is on the ground floor, which is 0. And then we can take a photo. Now we're all going to have to leave the room unless we want to be in the photo before we do that. So now we've left the room, we're ready to take the photograph. It is really important that you leave the room unless you want to be in the picture. If you can see the camera can see you, so you'll be in the shot. Once you're out of the room, press the camera button and the camera will now start to take the photo. It uses HDR, so it's taking multiple shots to get the light balance right to create a good photograph. Just keep watching the screen. It's going to load the preview image in a second, and then you can see the photograph that you've just taken. You can see initially it's distorted. That will be processed and all the lines will get straightened up into a perfect room. So we'll say we're happy with that and save that panorama. That process takes about 20 to 30 seconds, during which time we can now go back into the room and then put the camera and tripod into the next room ready to do it. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to tell the tour where we're going next. So we've got the photograph on the screen, as you saw earlier on, and we're now going to go into the dining area. So what we do is we literally touch where we're going to go. You can see it says hotspot target not yet set, so we're going to set a hotspot to a new room. We'll call that the dining room, and that's obviously still on the ground floor. And we go back to get ready to take the next photo. So we now save that panorama again, which again will take 20 or 30 seconds to actually do, while we start thinking about where the next photograph is going to be taken from. Sometimes you find yourself in a room that is just so big that it's best to take 2 photographs of it, one from each end, so that the people who are going to be seeing it get to see all of it. So in this circumstance we would call this study 1, and then we take a second photo at the other end, calling it study 2. Now the way that you create study 1 and study 2 is that you can see where you can choose your rooms. If you go all the way down to the bottom and select custom, you can then just type in whatever you wanted to call it, and then you repeat the process, get back to being able to take the photograph of study 1, and we'll then repeat the process again with study 2. So now we've got the photograph of study 1. We can see the whole of the room still a little bit distorted yet prior to being processed, but there's the door back to the dining room. So we touch that, set a hotspot to an existing room, which is the dining room. So there's the hotspot already created for you. And now we're going to take another photograph, but this time of study 2. And then take the photograph. So now we've got study 2 on the camera, we can create a hotspot now into the study, so you can create the complete tour as you go from room to room. So now we've gone from the kitchen to the dining room to the first part of the study to the second part of the study, and we've got hotspots in all of those rooms to be able to get backwards and forwards. But don't worry if you've missed any. The most important thing to do is to take the photographs. On the back-end software, when on your PC, you can also move the hotspots around, create more that you might have missed at the property. There's no accident that's irrecoverable. So we're now in the room that we call the blue room, which in this particular property is a little bit dark compared to other rooms, so always give yourself a chance by putting all the lighting on if you can, just to boost the ambient light level. Now we can also talk a little bit about positioning of the tripod here. I've put it in this room, in the centre of the room, but specifically making sure that I can see all of the exit points, because we want to create hotspots that people can actually touch on to get there. So if I move the camera too far over, it wouldn't be able to see the door to the kitchen. So sitting here, you can see all of the room, all of the exits to the room, as well as the whole of the room. And one final point to point out, because I'm taking a long time saying all of this, bear in mind that if you take too long, eventually the camera will turn off and you'll have to restart it and reconnect on your phone. So keep moving. It's worth mentioning that the camera doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't rotate or move around. It's got two 180-degree lenses, so there's one this side, one that side, and between them it takes the full 360-degree images, which then get automatically stitched together by the software. So now I'm going to show you the magic of how you get upstairs. So you can see we're in the blue room here that we had a look at earlier on, and there we can see the photograph with the picture of the staircase on there. So we're just going to touch the staircase, and we're going to set a hotspot to a new room and select the room, which is going to be the landing, and that's going to be on the first floor. Tick that, and now we'll move the camera upstairs to the landing, and there will be a hotspot when you're in the blue room that you can click on at the bottom of the stairs, which will take you magically upstairs. Sometimes you'll find some awkward shaped landings and corridors a bit like this, and you might remember earlier on we were saying that the golden rule is to make sure that you can see where you're going to be navigating to later. So here it's been a bit of a tricky spot, but we've situated the tripod and the camera so that we can see into that bedroom, we can see into that bedroom, and it can see just about the door there, which would then go into the third bedroom and around the corridor. So putting it slightly to one side of the corridor has been the way to solve this particular problem. What we can do is we can take multiple photos of it. So all we've actually done is we've moved the camera only about 8 feet, but so that it can now see around the corner. Then you can see the journey that we've got to go. Now there's 4 rooms that we've got to get in there, so we're going to just take a photograph here, clearly getting into these 2 bedrooms, and then another one further down the hall that gets into all those other rooms. So we've now reached the end of the long landing that we were looking at earlier on, and we've placed the tripod here because we can now see into the last of the rooms that we want to be able to take photographs of. And that really is the key to all of this. It doesn't matter too much which order you do the rooms, really that you do all the rooms and take a photograph of each of them, because you can stitch the hotspots together later on if it's, if time is against you or you miss one, it doesn't really matter. What does matter is that you put the camera in each and every room, and in each and every room you can see the way in and the way out. So here's a situation that you might come across sometimes, where when you look down the line of sight of the lens, the camera can see itself in a mirror. You often find that in bedrooms and bathrooms. What you want to do is to just find a place where you can just put it slightly to one side, or sometimes raise or lower the camera so that it's just out of reflection range of the mirror, and then take the photographs, because nobody wants to see a bright orange camera in a beautiful display of a house. So what we want to try and do is create a nice photograph of the outside, so that people, when they first arrive at the property virtually, can see what it looks like from the outside, then approach the front door, come in through the hall, and then make their way around the property. So what we're going to do is take the camera outside, find somewhere where it's not got the glare of the sun on it and it can see the property nicely. Now, to create a photograph of the outdoors, you want to select that it's an outdoor photo, and then select the location. In this particular case we've got the driveway, and then it's still a Madventure picture, and then we're ready to take the photo again. You just have to make the right choice, that's all. And the reason for that is because the camera needs to adjust for sunlight and HDR and all that kind of good stuff. So something that you'll have to think about when you're taking an outside photograph is how to not be in the picture. Obviously you need to be close enough that the Wi-Fi will work, but not actually still be in it. Sometimes it's okay to just duck down behind a car or wheelie bins. What we're going to try and do in this circumstance is we're going to just try and stand behind the door on the inside, and as long as we're not too far away from the Wi-Fi, that should still work. So sometimes in compromised lighting circumstances, the camera will suggest that it uses HDR or doesn't use HDR. In the particular circumstance where it's taking the measure at the moment, it's saying don't use it, so we'll just disable it now, and then it will take the photograph. And there we can see that the camera's actually taken a very difficult photograph under trying lighting circumstances, because we've got very, very bright sun behind the house and the sun's in shade, but it's still managed to pick up all the detail and make it look quite an inviting approach, and we're just hiding behind that front door. Okay, so a recap of some really important tips for while we're taking the photographs. Obviously make sure that the camera itself is level, and so use whatever adjustments you've got on the camera and the tripod to make sure that it's vertical in all planes. Make sure when you're in a room that you've considered the lighting, so wherever possible boost the lighting with the lights in the rooms if it's a dark room, and obviously have a bit of a tidy up as well if you can, if the owner of the house doesn't mind. Make sure that when you're taking the photograph you can see where you want to go, okay, so that the camera takes a photograph of the door that's the next one to the room that you're going to go into. When you're putting the camera into position in a room, also make sure that it's not lined up with any mirrors. Some rooms are really big, and you might want to take multiple photos of that room so that you can make sure that as somebody is virtually walking around it, they get to see it from all the different angles. And also some rooms are a bit odd in terms of shape, so long corridors for example. Don't be afraid to take multiple photos of those as well, so that you're simulating the journey as you would if you were actually walking around the property. When you're taking outside photographs, it can be quite hard sometimes to not be in the picture. Don't be afraid to hide behind cars or wheelie bins or be innovative, but be aware that you can be too far away from the camera's Wi-Fi signal. So just need to experiment with that. Sometimes it's easiest to just hide behind something and still be close. Practice is the greatest trainer. Do it on your own house. Have a go. Create some tours of your own property so that you get used to what the software feels like in your hand, on your phone, and how the camera works. Nobody likes to be embarrassed in front of a vendor when you're looking at it going, well, I don't quite know how to do this. A little tip for you though, in the software on the phone, there's a little icon on the top right hand corner that's got a help function, so you'll get a little tutorial on there if you need it. And the really last golden rule that you must always remember is take a photograph of every single room. So now we've taken a photograph of every room in the house, we're ready to upload them. All of the photographs and the tour that you've created needs to be sent up to the servers so that it's published on the internet and people will then be able to see it. And so the way to do that is this. You can see we've now got all of the photographs of all of the individual rooms in the house, and we then just press the yellow tick there. Warning, have you photographed every room and do you want to finish the tour? Yes, we've finished it. So there it is now in my inventory of all the tours that I've taken. And I now just press that button and press upload tour, and it then starts to process all of the images and then sends them up to the servers. Don't be concerned if it seems to be taking some time to upload all the images to the server. In this particular property that we've done, we've got an awful lot of very large images going up, so you can see it will take a bit of time for it to arrive. For a normal 3-bed detached house, it might take up to 4 or 5 minutes for the images to all arrive and be uploaded, so don't worry about it. Just come home, connect to your normal Wi-Fi, don't do this over your 3G, do it over the fastest connection that you possibly can, and it will all get processed properly for you.